Take a motion to approve the agenda.
So, second.
Motion by Craig and a second by Steve. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. We'll make note that Councilman Hageback is absent tonight. She did mention that she might be able to join us late. If that's the case, we'll welcome her when she gets here. So, next on the agenda is public comment. Is there anybody that wishes to address the council at this time for public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on. Next is committee reports. Chair of the Public Assets Committee, Steve Barnes.
Thanks, John. Our meeting was held December 18th, 5:30 p.m. here at Council Chambers. Member present was myself, Alden Diane Pralle, and Jim Davies. Others present, Mayor Sean Dietz, City Manager Ron Dutt, Public Works Director Doug Tarr, Chief Bob Schaefer, Steve Wilson from the DNR, and Bill Rowland. L&L, what is that?
L&I.
Oh, yeah, Landfill, North Iowa. Call the meeting to order at 5:30. First item that we discussed under unfinished business pertains to procedures and operation of the compost brush pile. Public Works Director explained that the recent controlled burn of the site still prompted complaints from a neighbor. Tarr provided a handout outlining many potential options for the council to consider. Bill Rowland from the Landfill, North Iowa, addressed some of the costs associated with landfilling the brush instead of burning, which is one of the list of options for future consideration. Steve Wilson of the DNR was present and suggested more frequent burning of piles. Tarr explained potential issues surrounding all options. The committee directed staff to contact commercial haulers and discontinue key privileges. Tarr will also implement adding a secondary pile for log storage and ask that logs 5 inches in diameter or larger be cleaned, separated, sorted, and stacked in a new location. The committee also directed staff to start discussions with the county to look into potential burn site locations further away from residential locations. Staff will not conduct further burning until the matters are settled. No other action was taken. The next item discussed was in regards to parking changes in the 400 and 500 blocks of 10th and 11th Avenue. Discussion was prompted by a letter received from a citizen in the area. The committee advised staff to work with City Attorney Mike Cross to draft the amendment that would change the signage on 11th Avenue Northeast to stipulate no parking from 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. on days that school is in session. Add no parking signage to the south side of 10th Avenue Northeast, stipulation no parking from 7:30 to 4 p.m. and to provide for no parking on 10th Avenue Northeast near the intersection of 4th Street Northeast. Staff will provide the new amendment at a future council meeting. City Manager Ron Dutt distributed handouts to the committee and shared information regarding potential cell tower construction project. The handouts identified potential locations for the project and detailed informative information relative to the distance of the proposed sites to the airport. Ron explained he has been in touch with Airport Manager Jay Schumann, asking his input as well from local pilots regarding the potential project. No action was taken. That meeting adjourned at 6:30. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. And we also have minutes from the January 7th City Council Budget Workshop session. Council met at 5 p.m. Members present were Lukensmeyer, Hageback, Davies, Pralle, and Eckhart. Harms absent. Also present was myself, Police Chief Schaefer, Public Works Director Doug Tarr, and City Manager Dutt. Ron and Doug handed out a document which is available for the public that highlighted items in upcoming 2014 budget as proposed by staff. Dutt and Tarr explained the needs by department. Chief Schaefer presented police department items for discussion as well. And I added at the end that I received a citizen request that the council consider allocating $5,000 to the Hampton Municipal Communications Utility Board. Discussions were held around the budget document that was handed out, and the workshop concluded at 6:13 p.m. Any questions? Next on the agenda, under new business, we have consideration of approval of FAA airport CIP documents presented by Clapsaddle Garber. Authorizing myself to sign. Bill Grady is here.
Bill Gravy with Bob Schaefer. This is our annual process to submit a capital improvement plan to the FAA for the airport. This year's plan shows no federal projects in fiscal year 14. We show an expansion of the turnarounds. That's a safety project in fiscal year 15. And that's the portion that's being signed tonight. They're asking for your approval to sign. I guess one thing I want to make sure you're aware of is that entitlement program, we've talked about that many times before. You're allocated $150,000 per year through the entitlement program. You can accrue up to 4 years. Then after 4 years, the 4-year-old entitlement goes away. You lose that money. And the point we're at right now is that fiscal year 13, which is what we're in right now, we're losing $67,500, I think, is going away. And then next year, fiscal year 14, where we have no project, there'll be another $147,500 that will be lost. It's aviation generated tax money. It stays in the aviation fund and will get reallocated somewhere else.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but do we not have the ability to make a recommendation on where those funds go, maybe to another Iowa community that is doing a project?
Right. You can transfer those funds to another airport. It's a fairly simple process, and I would say if that opportunity comes up, I'd sure encourage you to do that, to keep the money and the money spent here in the state.
This bill, does this on fiscal year 14, it shows the residing in the Orange hangar.
Yeah.
That's a state project, though.
Yeah, that's a state project. That
state grant.
That would be a state grant. That type of project's not eligible for federal funds. We went ahead and showed it on these forums just so everybody has a picture. About April or so, we'll be submitting capital improvement program for the state project. So that's one I think we'll ask you to consider.
If, let's say, going through the budget process, if that doesn't happen, that doesn't get budgeted for in fiscal year 14 in the city budget, does that have any impact on this, what we're doing tonight?
No.
Okay. All right.
Any questions for Bill? Thank you. This time we take a motion. No other questions?
Move to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
A motion by Craig and a second by Jim to approve the CIP documents, authorizing myself to sign. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda is consideration of accepting the engineer's statement of completion for work completed by Heartland Asphalt on the 2012 HMA Overlay Project. And Mark Crawford here. Discuss that.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Mark Crawford with CGA. Happy New Year to each of you. What you have before you is our statement of completion for the 2012 HMA Overlay Project. We are recommending that the city accept that project as complete. 30 days after you decide to accept it, there'll be a release of retainage that's been withheld in the project that's in the amount of $2,600 and change. If you have any questions about it, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Mark from the council? None? No. All right, thank you very much. Take a motion then.
Move to approve.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Steve and a second by Diane to approve. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have consideration of approval of the Hampton Fire Department 2013 roster of elected officers. Those officers are Fire Chief Kent Wilkinson, Assistant Fire Chief Scott Strother, Lieutenant Fire Chief Mike Pralle, President Eric Arenholz, Secretary Alex Haas, and Treasurer Trev Murphy. I don't believe we have anybody from the fire department here today. I don't see anybody. Take a motion from the council on that.
I'd make a motion to approve the 2013 officers of the Hampton Fire Department.
Second.
A motion by Dick and a second by Steve. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have the Riders Snowmobile Club. Is Gary McVicker here? Let's see. Request access to city properties. So Gary's not here. I just skipped that. Okay. Next on the agenda is representatives from US Cellular here to discuss proposed site for the cell tower.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Julie Shebeck. I do site acquisition work for First American Site Acquisition. I also have here, where'd you go? Sean Hempstead. He's the project manager for US Cellular. We're here this evening basically to kind of give some information about a proposed cell tower that we're looking to place on city-owned property. I believe that you've got some of these. I just thought maybe I'll just kind of reference it. Basically, it's I guess I'm going to call it like the ballpark type of a environment on the east side of Olive Street. We're looking to propose it to back here beyond the ball diamonds and kind of maybe a waste or dump.
Stockpile stuff.
Okay, thank you very much. That kind of area. Basically, we've got a lease in to Mr. Dunt looking to propose a 160-foot monopole. It was originally going to be a little bit taller, but now we are working with the FAA and what have you, and Sean can probably get into that more. Basically, the main reason that we're here for the tower is the need to improve our data capacity as well as to improve our in-building coverage. So that's our main reason why we need the tower. I did not want to assume anything. This is a photo simulation of what a monopole looks like. It's just kind of a big beefy pole. There are no guy wire anchors type of a thing. And I can certainly pass this around if you'd like me to. You're welcome. And I believe you also have these. I just kind of wanted to touch upon them. This is kind of gives you a propagation map that the RF engineer would have given it to kind of give you an idea of where we're at with our coverage capacity type of a thing. Basically here we've got Hampton, this is the proposed site. Green is the color that we're going for. And right now we're kind of in blue, this is the color that we do not want. Coming to the next one, and I know you guys are probably in the black and whites, and I can pass these as well. Obviously with the new tower that we're proposing, we're going for green, and that's going to improve the coverage and what have you. Granted, these two propagation maps are based on the original height. They would change slightly, but not enough that it would be real significant. So, and I can pass those to you too. Thank you. So basically, we're here tonight just to kind of give you that information as well as to answer any questions. I do think that I'll have Sean step in and kind of give an explanation of what our original height that we started it and where we're at now in regards, because I spoke to Mr. Dunt. I know some of the concerns were with the airport and its proximity, so we wanted to address that and then answer any questions that the council might have. So.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Sean Hempstead. I'm project manager with US Cellular. And I briefly just wanted to kind of explain the need for the tower and go into a little bit more detail than what Julie did and the effects with the FAA and the airport and its proximity. Kind of go through that briefly and talk about why we decided to lower the height. First off, the proposed location was derived from what's called a search ring, which is an area where the RF engineer asks us to go find a site in this location. It's kind of done through a computer-generated model, tells them where's the best location to improve the in-building coverage in the target we're going for. And this one is actually twofold. It's for improved in-building penetration, meaning if you're inside your house on the northeast or northwest side, you probably don't have if you have USI, you don't have good coverage inside. This will allow it to penetrate stronger, be closer, and spread our sites out a little bit. The other reason is for data capacity. What data capacity is right now, cell site can only handle so many calls and so much data being processed at one time. Currently, the city of Hampton is covered by only one sector from our tower on the southeast side of town. So it's only being able to handle about 1/3 of what the full cell site can do. But we need that location for the other two sectors to cover the rural areas, the highways, and everything else. So the reason we want to go on the northwest side is, and also in the area we're talking about, is we'll be able to cover the city of Hampton primarily with 2 sectors from that one tower, because sectors are done at 120-degree angles away from each other. We'll be able to cover it with 2, which will give us much increased capacity along with the one sector from the side on the southeast side. Any questions as far as kind of the need and why we're looking at going where we're targeted? Okay, great, thank you.
These towers, is this the style that we're going up on? This is the style we're familiar with, or the cable, there's supported towers, or is this the new style?
No, these have been going up for years. They used to be done primarily on concrete back 30, 40 years ago. They've changed to steel. It's a steel section tower that they sleeve over each other, and it's designed structurally with a foundation that goes about roughly 40 feet in the ground, about 7 to 8 feet in diameter. And they kind of lock in, and they're designed to actually not fall. If it were to ever fail, it's designed not to fall over whole, but just snaps and falls within about a 50% radius.
And the square footage, the perimeter that would be necessary if we went into this agreement?
60 by 60.
60 by 60. As I say, I'm not familiar with the ultimate details of it, but we're looking to lease 60 by 60 compound to encompass the tower, our equipment shelter, and potentially any other carriers that might want to come on there as well. We do allow co-location, so say Verizon or AT&T wanted to come on our tower, we would allow them and they would pay us rent, and there would be room for them as well, both on the tower and on the ground.
Do you want to address? I can certainly pass that around.
Okay.
So, excuse me. Basically, what I have here that we're talking about is a kind of a preliminary lease exhibit, if you will, and it shows, it goes past into the stockpile area that we're talking about, the lease area. Flipping the pages here gives you a little more detail of the compound, and then back, the 3rd page would be a drawing of that tower type of a thing. So I can certainly pass this around as well. All sorts of handouts tonight.
Great, then real quick, I just wanted to address, we originally had asked for an 180-foot tower from the FAA, which was a 190-foot filing. And what we did was called an opinion letter. We went to an aeronautical company and asked them to run a pre-FAA study. They evaluate everything that the FAA evaluates. The value of that is they are able to come back to us and tell us when we exceed allowable heights, by how much, and what the impact is to that. And when we filed for the 190 height, the overall 190 height, we were 3 feet over the allowable height to avoid, that would have avoided us to go to an extended study. If we would have went with the original height, we would have went to what's called an extended study, and it's very detailed. Having talked to the RF engineer, originally we talked about a range of heights. I asked the RF engineer for their maximum height, what they'd like, and the minimum height. And that range was 150 to 180. So after talking with her, we refiled the FAA at an overall height of 170. We lowered it 20 feet. Not only did that avoid the extended study, but it also put us more in compliance with some of the navigation. I apologize, I'm off on my terminology here. There it is. On the instrument approach. so we were compliant with, I believe it's the straight line instrument approach, if I remember correctly. Like Julie said, we're going from a 180, we're reducing it from 180 to 160, and the propagation is based off 180. The propagation really doesn't change much. It changes about 2% overall, which is really minimal, and you wouldn't be able to even see it on that map. If we showed you two of them, it would not be that great. It's when you get down to the 150 range is where it really starts to show. Are there any questions regarding the airport?
Not regarding the airport, but
Anything in general.
is this fenced in? Do you fence it
Yes,
in?
it'll be fenced in, and again, that's to be determined in negotiations with the city of how that's fenced.
And who maintains the grass around there? Is it rocked? You guys gonna mow it?
Inside the
Contract it out, or?
inside the compound, it'll be a rocked compound, and it's sprayed for weeds 1 to 2 times a year. Outside the compound, it would be the responsibility, and really there is no grass there today. It's like you said, it's a
Kind of dirt, gravel.
stockpile of dirt and fill, so.
I have a question. How deep did you say you had to go as far as like
The foundation for the tower could go as deep as 40, 41 feet. That's typical. I've seen them as low as 32 feet, and it just depends on the soils. And we have not released to do the geotechnical there. We wanted to make sure that this was something that the city was, we wanted to take that next step of start the leasing and negotiations. But it kind of depends on how the soils are. If they're real sandy or there's a lot of moisture in it, a lot of times we have to build a beefier foundation, maybe go a little bit deeper. If it's a solid clay, a lot of times we don't have to go quite as far. But what they'll do is, in the geotechnical, they come out and they do a 40-foot, 6-inch drill to take soil samples at different levels, and they evaluate how the soil changes at different elevations and what the water content is. And then they propose a foundation design to our tower engineers, and between the tower engineers and the geotechnical firm, they come up with a foundation design that will meet or exceed the ANSI TE222 requirements.
So what comprises the foundation then? That's
It'll be concrete
just all
foundation.
concrete? Okay.
What about the road for access? Do you take any responsibility for maintenance or snow removal coming off from all that?
That again is something that would be part of the lease negotiations. We're willing to work either way. There are some sites where we do snow removal and take care of it. There are some sites where the landlord would prefer to do it. What we would probably be asking the city to do is to upgrade that road going back there to a gravel base. We have a standard, and we can show the city a standard design of our access roads. It's pretty beefy. It's typically 6 inches of 3 to 4 inch rock, and then an additional 4 to 6 inches of 3/4 inch washed limestone with a weed barrier underneath. But again, sometimes people don't want us to improve the access road, so we kind of work with what's given to us. The way we look at it is we're guests. It's not our property, it's the city's property. We want to work with you on that.
It's generally smaller vehicles, just pickups, maintenance, small maintenance.
Typically, other than during construction, there'll be crane traffic, just crane to bring the shelter in and a crane to stack the tower. Beyond that, it's truck traffic, and not very often. Once the tower's up, you'll probably see a cell site technician there. If it's once a month, that would be often. It's usually closer to once a quarter if there's no problems with the site. But if we do have problems with the site, say it loses power or we have problems with our fiber, they'll have to come out and do some maintenance or if a piece of equipment breaks.
What's the longest segment of tower during the construction that'll have to be taken in there?
I believe there are 45 or 50-foot sections on the tower, so it would be brought in by flatbed, and then offloaded with a small crane, and then, or they may bring the full crane in there, stack it the same day they offload it.
Thanks.
If you add other carriers to this Does that require anything physically changing on there? Like you're gonna be cranes in again, add anything, or is this something you're gonna have
Actually,
about all that?
they might have to bring a crane in if they bring a shelter in. But the tower's gonna be pre-designed to handle up to 4 carriers. So we designed the tower that way so that when if another carrier were to come along, we wouldn't have to structurally upgrade the tower or change it out or anything. So we pre-designed it for that. If another carrier was to come along, they would probably have, if they bring a shelter and they would have a crane in there for 3 hours while they're offloading it. Then the crane goes away, and then most of the tower work can be done with tower climbers. There's pegs on the tower if they climb. They use pulleys and rope systems to bring the antennas up there and run the coax. It's basically all done using the people on the ground and the people on the tower at the same time.
Craig, did you have
Yeah, a couple of questions, Mayor. First, what kind of utilities would you require from the city?
What we require is power, electricity. Typically what we ask, and again in preparation for future co-locators, is 600 amp service brought to the site. And then we ourselves typically utilize a 200 amp service, and we would put up a 3 or 4 gang meter base in preparation, so if another carrier came in, we would not have to disturb the ground to bring power back there again. They would just have to tie into that existing transformer tray there and get their power, and just have to have a meter slapped in.
The other question I have then is you've referred a couple of times about allowing other carriers on your tower. How common is that, and how many? I know you said you can go up to 4. Are we really just negotiating with you, so you can negotiate with further companies?
Well, I'll give you an example. Well, I'll give you a generic statement. It's fairly factual. I've worked in this industry 12 years. I've worked with USIDA for going on 6 years. There are some towers that we have a co-locator come on within a year. We have some sites that sit there and we are the only person on them for 10 years. I'm working on the other side of Waterloo where the tower's been up for 11 years and we're still the only carrier on there. It's hard to say. It all kind of depends on what the needs of the other carriers are. They may not have the exact same problem, or they're not facing the exact same problems we're facing today. Maybe they cover it from a different direction, or maybe they have a repeater. There's so many different variables to it. Our networks are so different as far as our RF engineers designing them. It depends on what kind of antenna you use, how tall your other towers are in the area. There's so many variables. It's just so hard to say whether a carrier would come on right away or not.
any other questions?
Again, just to be clear, the FAA has already approved, or will approve this 180 or 160 foot tower.
It's 160, 170 overall fire. They have not approved it yet. We've done the application and we've got the opinion letter. We're assuming at this point that it will be approved. There's always that possibility that they may see something that our aeronautical study did not catch. This has happened before. That's why we have to go to the FAA. We're expecting that approval. They estimated 45 days from the time it was submitted, which was the last week of December. I've been getting them back anywhere from 14 to 21 days, so I kind of thought I might even have the approval by tonight, but I didn't. If the FAA were to come back and say this is not allowable height, the one thing that we will get out of them at that time is what is the FAA allowable height. That's one nice thing. We would then evaluate that and say it came back and said the tallest tower we got is maybe 153 feet. I'd go back to the RF engineer and say, can you live with a 145-foot tower? And the odds are, I would guess, would be probably yes. I can't speak for 100%, but my intuition would say it probably would be accepted.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Great, well, thank you guys.
Thank you for that, too.
Thank you.
Thank you for the
Is there any further comments or suggestions, questions on that particular item? If we need any action on that, we'll move on to the next item. Consideration of approval of the Hampton City Council, the city's official newspaper. motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Jim and a second by Craig to approve the Hampton Chronicle as the city's official newspaper. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is consideration of approval of city representative and alternate to the Landfill North Iowa Board. I've served as the representative for the past year due to the change in council dates. That's no longer possible. So I've asked Russ Morgan to fill that slot if it would be approved by the council. Take a motion to that point.
I'd make a motion to appoint Russ Morgan as our city representative.
Second.
Motion by Dick, and a second by Steve, and I should add too that we just retain, Doug Tarr has been the alternate, we just retain him as the alternate. He hasn't had to attend any meetings in the last year, so I can't see that being an issue. Would that be agreeable for Dick and Steve for your motion?
That'd be fine.
Fine.
Any further discussion?
Is that a paid position?
It is.
What's that paid?
It's $40 a meeting they pay, and they pay that out at the end of the year. Any other questions? Yes, Mayor?
Sorry. I'll stand over here. I'm just curious, following Craig's question, do they pay you if you miss a meeting?
No. It's based on attendance. I didn't find out until the check came in the mail that they paid for it. Any other questions?
How often do they meet?
Every other month. It's odd numbered months. Anything else? Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda is approval of claims submitted by staff and reviewed by myself and members of the council. The amount of the claims is $230,521.47. The claim does include 2 payrolls and invoices processed since the last regular session that was held on December 11th. Take a motion to approve the claims.
So moved to approve.
Motion by Diane, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by motion by Diane and a second by Dick to approve the claims. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have consideration of approval and adoption of resolution 2013-02 concerning the wastewater treatment project. A resolution authorizing retention of appraiser for consolidated appeals from Compensation Commission. City Manager Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution 2013-02, whereas on September 18, 2012, a duly appointed Compensation Commission met and received evidence and assessed damages for the necessary property interests related to land acquisition for the wastewater treatment plant. Whereas on October 10, 2012, the owners of the necessary property interest filed a notice of appeal of the appraisement of the Compensation Commission and petition with the Iowa District Court for Franklin County. Whereas on October 22nd, 2012, the city filed a notice of appeal from the appraisal and award of damages by the Compensation Commission in the petition with the Iowa District Court for Franklin County. Whereas the court has consolidated the appeals for trial, whereas the jury will be required to determine the fair market value of the property before and after the acquisition of the necessary property interest, and whereas an expert appraiser testimony is necessary to determine the fair market value of the property. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Hampton, Iowa, Section 1, that the city manager is authorized and directed to retain Ted R. Franson of Franson and Associates, LC, to prepare an appraisal of the necessary property interest for use in the consolidated appeals from the appraisement of the Compensation Commission.
Questions?
This essentially is at the request of an advisement of our legal counsel going into this court case on the eminent domain land.
We've already had one appraisal, we're
Yeah,
asking for a second one.
this is a review, yes, this would be the second one, in anticipation of the court.
Basically to show in good faith that we are trying to establish the property.
Yeah, I mean, the objective is to make sure that fair market value is what the, at minimum, fair market value is what the landowner is compensated.
Right.
How much will it cost?
This one, price estimate was $5,000. But could be more, could be less. You know, I guess also it could, you know, we got, if he testifies in court, that's probably a per hour charge. So yeah, there's absolutely expense related to it.
But your overall feel is it puts us in a better position to go into court with this second opinion also?
That is what our legal advice is, yeah. And I would recommend following along with it.
Are we quite a ways apart?
We don't know.
Hopefully not less than 5,000, huh?
I don't know.
Anything else? Call for a motion.
Move to approve and adopt the resolution.
There's a second.
Second.
I have a motion by Steve and a second by Diane to approve and adopt resolution 2013-02. Any further discussion? Move forward with the roll call vote. Eckhart?
Aye.
Pralle?
Aye.
Davies?
Aye.
Arms?
Aye.
Lukenmeyer?
Aye.
Audiback is absent. Motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda is resolution 2013-03, 2012 HMA Overlay Project, a resolution accepting public improvements. I'll refer reading to City Manager Doug.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas on the 11th day of September 2012, the Mayor and City Clerk of the City of Hampton, Iowa entered into a construction contract with Heartland Asphalt of Mesa City, Iowa for the construction of certain public improvements, generally described as the 2012 HMA Overlay Project. Whereas the contractor has fully completed the construction of the public improvement in accordance with the terms and conditions of the contract and plans and specifications as shown by the certificate of the engineer filed with the clerk on December 11, 2012. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Hampton, Iowa, Section 1, that the report of the engineer be and the same is hereby approved and adopted, and the public improvements are hereby approved and accepted as having been fully completed in accordance with the plans, specifications, and form of contract. And the total final construction cost thereof is hereby determined to be $53,305.21, as shown in the report of the engineer. Thank you, Mayor.
Any questions before we call for the motion? Somebody would like to make a motion?
So move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Diane and a second by Steve to approve and adopt resolution 2013-03. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Lukenmeyer?
Aye.
Davies?
Aye.
Arms?
Aye.
Eckhart?
Aye.
Audiback is absent. Pralle?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have the consent agenda. That includes approving the previous minutes as drafted from the Tuesday, December 11th, 2012 regular session meeting and scheduling the next regular session meeting for Thursday, January 24th, 2013 at 6 p.m. in City Council chambers. Take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Dick and a second by Jim to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have staff reports. New Fire Chief Kent Wilkinson is not with us tonight. Police Chief Bob Schaefer.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council, City Manager. I think since we were together last, happy to report that we've caught the individual that was breaking into commercial buildings and such, but followed that up the next week by somebody breaking into cars in the southwest part of town. We have some ideas, but nothing concrete on that aspect. Also, we continue in the nuisance enforcement. So far in the month of January, we just have 3, and we still have 3 opened. Going back to December, we had 8 CRs, of which 7 are closed and 1 is open. There was 1 citation issued. That particular property has been somewhat cleaned up, not totally. We have a court date coming up, I believe it's next Thursday on that, and then hopefully that will get taken care of at that time. We had the grand jury come through today to inspect our holding cells, and didn't hear any negative comments about it. They thought that they were sufficient, up to snuff or whatever, and did ask some questions about where things were going as far as the county and the city. And I basically had told them that they were to a point where there was two options, either levy a tax by the property taxes or to do it per capita. Kind of give them a little information on both of those, and then let them kind of take it from there. So, does anybody have any questions? Yes, Chris.
Chief, I had a call the other night, excuse me, about complaints about snowmobiles. And in fact, I did call the PD on one that I witnessed myself, but the thing that the person that contacted me was, he was a snowmobile rider, and wanted me to know that when we look at these kinds of things, and we do get a lot of complaints about them, that we don't brand everybody with the same iron. I mean, there's only a certain few of them that are actually disrupting the PD, disobeying the speed limits or whatever, but I told him that I'm quite sure that you guys took that into consideration, but it's hard for you guys to find them sometimes, isn't it?
It was a little, maybe some miscommunication or whatever on my part to the other officers. They were not aware that the snowmobiles could actually ride on the main trail. They thought that they were supposed to be off of there. That is one of the reasons why. In fact, the night that you had called in, one of the reasons why the officer had talked to him, and, well, you aren't supposed to, well, yeah, we can, and they called me and I says, yes, put out a memo that they are allowed on that trail. They are not supposed to be on a blacktop.
Right.
But it's tough for us to enforce that. I had somebody talk to me about that, somebody that does ride snowmobile, and they said that they were on the south side of Highway 3, and there were other people on the north, and they had spikes on, and they were going right down the blacktop. I don't know what the remedy is there, other than the snowmobile club, maybe somehow or other. I mean, it's a lot of their money that paid for it, and I guess the other snowmobilers need to maybe help go and enforce that. At least let us know who's doing it, or talk to the ones that are doing it. But they do know that in town, the officers do, that any of the spurs of the trails are off limits, but the main trail. I suppose when you get more snow, maybe they'll groom it, maybe more snowmobiles would ride on the other. But they also know now that the trail is closed off completely because of lack of snow.
Sure.
So, any other questions? Thank you.
Next, Public Works Director, Doug Tarr.
Thank you, Mayor. It's budget time, as everybody's well aware of, so going in a lot of different directions and having a lot of meetings. Pretty much provided you a report. Does anybody have any questions or concerns at this time regarding anything? Okay, thank you.
City Manager Roundup.
I don't have anything unless anybody has any questions.
Council reports. Again, Councilman Hogback is absent. Councilman Davies.
Just one thing, on Saturday, January 19th, the Chamber of Commerce is having their annual banquet.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Councilman Pralle.
I have nothing tonight.
Councilman Eckert.
I would like to congratulate Karen Mitchell and FCDA on their hard work and their efforts. It's paid off again for another company coming into Hampton, and it shows you that there's a lot of work, a lot of positive things happening in our community and the county as a whole, and I can't thank these folks enough.
Very good. Councilman Arms.
Nothing to
Councilman Lukensmeyer.
Just one note about losing the community, losing another long-term businessman, Don Goldberg, who was the owner of Hampton Heating for over 20 years, 25 years or more, passed away this week. He was 91 years old, long-time resident, served in the military, was in a prisoner of war camp in Germany, so sad to lose that person.
And my report, we don't have anything tonight either, so they've been working on budget stuff. And after this meeting, we will have a short brief budget workshop. But we've got other business to tend to before we close the regular session. We have discussion with legal counsel, negotiation strategy for upcoming union bargaining. And we may go into closed session under Code of Iowa Section 20.17, paragraph 3. Do you need a motion to close the session?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Craig and a second by Steve to close the session at 6:46. Need a roll call vote, babies?
Aye.
Arms?
Aye.
Automatic is absent. Haggard?
Aye.
Lukensmeyer?
Aye.
Pralle?
Aye.
Okay. Regular session meeting of the Hampton City Council on Thursday, January 10th, 2013 is now approaching 6:47.